In today's message, I want to talk about Judas had the bag. Judas had the bag. Now, if I was in church, I would be telling somebody, look, tell your neighbor, say, neighbor, Judas had the bag. Judas had the bag. Oh, if somebody in the room with you, look at them with a smile on your face and say, Judas had the bag. Genesis 3:15. We're going to talk about Judas had the bag. When Adam and Eve sinned in that garden, he said to the serpent, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed, and it shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Theologians, those who go to the seminary, call this proto-evangelium. Proto-evangelium is one of those theological terms that you learn when you go to these fancy schools and stuff like that. What it basically means is this is the first mention. Proto means first in Greek. Evangelion means evangelical or the gospel. This is the first mention of a deliverer, someone who's coming to rescue us from sin and death. Genesis 3:15, proto-evangelium, the first mention of somebody coming to rescue man from sin and death. Genesis 22:8, when Abraham was about to put Isaac on that altar and tied him up, took that knife out, was going to do his thing because the Most High Word said to do it. He heard the word. Isaac said to Abraham, look, where's the lamb for the offering in verse 7? And in verse 8, Abraham said, my son, Elohim will provide himself a lamb for the burnt offering. So they went, both of them together. If y'all know who he provided for the offering, somebody throw me a 100 in the chat. All right. Deuteronomy 18:18. Sometime later, Most High told him, he said, look, and this is all in the Torah now, because I know some people don't believe Mashiach exists or real, or, shouldn't read New Testament and all that, but it's all over. Somebody throw John 5:39. It says, you search the scripture because you think in them you have eternal life, but they are they which testify of me. The scriptures testify of our Mashiach. I'm gonna break that down after Pesach. I'm gonna break it down. Here it is again, another mention of Mashiach. In Deuteronomy 18:18, it says, I will raise them up a prophet like you, Moses. Hebrews 7:14, our Mashiach sprung up from Judah, from among their brethren, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I command him. All that I command him. Here it is. The Mashiach came in that so-called New Testament. People don't want to believe it. In the book of Daniel, Daniel, that is a prophet there. Daniel's prophecies is still baffling people today. He accurately prophesied to Daniel 70 weeks. He said in Daniel 9, verse 24, he said 70 weeks are determined upon the people and upon the Kodesh city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and the prophecy and to anoint the most Kodesh. Look, Daniel prophecies have not missed. You could go not only in the scriptures, but you can go in your Encyclopedia Britannica on Google, and you could see everything Daniel was prophesying take place in world history. If that's not proof that the book is true, I don't know what is. Daniel said in verse 26, there was a Mashiach who was going to come, and after 62 weeks, 62 weeks, shall Mashiach be cut off, but not for himself. And the people or the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood unto the end of the war. Desolations are determined. Daniel prophesied after 62 weeks, Mashiach shall be cut off. Daniel essentially let them know from this point to 62 weeks of years, Mashiach is going to come and he's going to be cut off at the end of that, but not for himself. He's doing this for the people. According to Matthew chapter 1, verse 21. Somebody throw that in the chat. He's come to save his people from their sins. Daniel said, after 62 weeks, shall Mashiach be cut off. They're going to kill him. He's going to die. And here it is in the Old Testament. And we got people still don't believe what happened in that so-called New Testament. In the process of time, John chapter 1, verse 29, here comes John, described as the greatest prophet who ever was born unto a woman by Mashiach himself, because he had the honor and the privilege to announce who Mashiach actually was. John 1:29, the next day, Yehochanan saw Yahusha coming unto him and said, behold, the Lamb of Elohim which take away the sins of the world. Yehochanan or John recognized him immediately. And in verse 31, Yehochanan or John said this, and I knew him not, but that he should be made manifest or shown to Israel. Therefore, I am come baptizing with water. He said, the only reason I'm here baptizing in this here water is because I am the one chosen to show who Mashiach actually is. I'm the one that's going to announce who he is. But I don't know him. He said, and I knew him not, but that he should be manifest to to Israel. He's going to be shown to Israel. And that's why John came baptizing with water. And in verse 32, John bare record saying, I saw the Ruach HaKodesh descending from Shamayim heaven like a dove, and it abode upon him. John said, I saw the Ruach HaKodesh on Yahusha, and I knew him not. He's like, but I didn't know it. They were supposed to be cousins, but I didn't know who he was. But I knew him not. But the only reason I knew who he was, in verse 33, he that sent me to baptize with water, the same said to me, upon whom you shall see the Spirit descending and remaining on him, the same is he that immerses, baptizes with the Ruach HaKodesh. He said, when you see the Ruach HaKodesh, you're going to go out there, you're going to baptize all kind of folks. They going to be coming, man, blind, going to be down there from here to there. But somebody going to come and you're going to see the Ruach HaKodesh come on and John. And when you see that, you know this is the one. This is the one that been talked about since Genesis 3:15. The one that I let out of the bag since 3:15 in Genesis, the one that is coming to crush Hasatan's head and to get his own heel bruised. The proto-evangelium. He's coming. He showed that to Yehochanan, to John the Baptist. Verse 33, the same one that sent me to baptize with water, he said, upon whom you shall see the Spirit descending and remaining on him, the same is he which baptized with the Ruach HaKodesh. I saw and bear record, this is the Son of Elohim. Wow. I am an eyewitness that this is the Son of Elohim. And from that time, Mashiach got tempted by Hasatan. He said, it is written every single time. It is written, it is written, it is written. Hasatan couldn't take the book no more. So he ran off. He started scrambling to be like, I can't deal with Yahusha like that. He's always talking script. He ain't coming with nothing out of his heart. I think this, I believe that. Hasatan never said one time, well, that's your interpretation, but the way I interpret it is this way, because he know you cannot trickerate scripture when it's in context, when it's coming out the book straight, proving all things hold fast to that which is good. You can't trickerate that. But in Luke chapter 6, verse 12, this would happen after Mashiach got immersed. It said that it came to pass in those days that he went out into a mountain to pray. It said Mashiach went to a mountain to pray and continued all night in prayer to Elohim. And when it was day, see, he prayed all night. And then when it was day, he called unto him his disciples. So he didn't just choose these fellas arbitrarily and be like, you and you and you. Yeah, what? You want to volunteer? Come on, man. Come on. Come on if you coming. You know, he didn't do that. But what Mashiach did was he prayed all night to Elohim. And when it was day, He called unto him his disciples, and of them he chose 12, whom also he named apostles. Apostle just means sent, one sent. That's all it means. He's sending you. He's sending you. And why is he sending you? Not for us to just do nothing, because we saved by grace through faith. There ain't nothing we got to do no more. Take it easy. Enjoy this life. We sent so we could spread this message. And this message is about him. Verse 13, it says he chose 12 apostles, and it starts naming them. It says Simon, whom he also named Peter or Kepha, Andrew, Kepha's brother, James and John. They call those two the sons of thunder or Boragenes. In Mark 3:17, somebody could throw it in the chat if you want to know where that is. Sons of thunder, Boragenes, Mark 3:17. And then he chose Philip and Bartholomew. Verse 6, it said he chose Matthew and Thomas and James, the son of Alphaeus. Man, that's a cool name, Alphaeus. He also chose Simon, called Zelotes. They call him Simon the Canaanite in Mark 3:18. Verse 16, y'all know, and Judas, the brother of James, and Judas Iscariot. He chose Judas, which also was the traitor. In Matthew 10:4, it said Judas betrayed him. Mark 3:19, it said Judas that betrayed him. How many apostles did he choose? It was 12 of them. Each one of them he chose for a reason. Just a question: did Mashiach pray all night before choosing these, according to Luke 6:12? So he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. I remember this one fella, they call him Matthew in Matthew 9, verse 9. Said Matthew was a tax collector. And in Matthew 9:9, it says, and as Yahushua passed forth from thence, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the receipt of custom. And he said unto him, follow me. And he arose and followed him. Now, if you have a job and you currently are employed, somebody just put an E for employed. You can put a U for unemployed if you're not, or if you retired. Now, I got a question for you. If somebody walk up to you and just say, follow me, would you pick up and just leave your job, not knowing how you gonna pay your bills and stuff like that, how you gonna eat, how your family gonna, I mean, just put a Y for yes or N for no. If somebody just come up and say, follow me, no, I'm just asking that because I'm just showing y'all what Matthew did. Matthew had one of them cush jobs. He was sitting in the office with air conditioner. I could see him now. Every now and then he'd get on, he'd play a few games on the computer, and sometimes, he'd talk on his phone and check in, with his wife, his cousins and stuff like that. Hey, how y'all doing? And yeah, I'm at work. I'm kicking it, and all. Matthew, it says, I like this. Matthew sitting at the receipt of custom. Y'all think Matthew was like working in the ditch, digging that ditch? Put me a Y in the chat. If y'all think he was sitting, put me an N. Was Matthew digging the ditch? Or, I mean, was he out there working, on the railroad all the live long day? Matthew had that job we all want, just sitting behind the desk, just chilling out. Sometimes he pull up Google and Google some stuff, and sometimes he, play a few little games on the computer while the boss ain't watching. But he was sitting at the receipt of custom, and Mashiach just said two words: follow me. And Mashiach impressed Matthew so much that it says, highlight this, and he arose and followed him. I'm gonna tell you something about Matthew. It only took two words for him, because Matthew gladly left his job to follow Mashiach, because Matthew's heart was on the things above. He got that call from Mashiach and he forsook all. Now, I don't know, I shudder to ask the question, would you have left your job? But most of us would not have. I know Netanyahu would not have left his job. Somebody talking about following me. Be like, yeah, all right, I'm following you. If I felt he was somebody, I'd have took a day of vacation or something, just to make sure. But But Matthew gave it up. Matthew told his boy, look, man, I quit. I quit. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Matthew said, I'm gone. But Matthew's heart was on the things above. I guarantee you, Matthew was praying every day, every night. Just like it says in Psalm chapter 1, verse 2. Somebody throw that in the chat. Meditate on his word day and night. I guarantee you, Matthew was reading the scripts day and night. I guarantee you, Matthew knew the book. He knew and was waiting for that Mashiach that Daniel had prophesied would come during his lifetime. All it took was 2 words for Matthew to say, I'm out of here. I got something better going on now. I'm not worried about where the next meal coming from. I'm with Mashiach. And that just show you Matthew's heart. In John 10:36, I remember that time, poor old Thomas, he took a bum rap. You got to show me your holes in your hands and in your side, and they calling him Doubting Thomas and stuff like that. We're going to see Thomas one day. I'm not talking about Thomas like that. Thomas, he was one of the 12. And I know Thomas had something about him because Mashiach prayed all night and he chose Thomas. I remember the time in John 10:13, they was telling Mashiach, man, you blaspheming, you blaspheming. We'll put hands on you, you blaspheming. And Mashiach told him, you telling me I'm blaspheming because I say I'm the son of Elohim? Verse 39, he said, therefore they sought again to take him, but he escaped out of their hand. Do you realize they was going to try to do Mashiach in at that time? Because Mashiach was going around talking about he's the son of Elohim. After he escaped out of their hands, it says, and they went again beyond Jordan into the place where John at first baptized, and there he abode. Mashiach went away because he escaped out of their hands. They was going to try and kill him for blasphemy because he said, I am the son of Elohim. And he went away again beyond the Jordan. He crossed the Jordan River because like, man, these guys are after me. The news came to Mashiach in John chapter 11, verse 14, that Lazarus was sick. Mashiach told his disciples, he's sleeping, and it said, oh, he gonna get some rest, he good. If he gets some rest, he'll be better. And Mashiach said to them plainly in John 11:14, Lazarus is dead. That's what sleep means. And I'm glad for your sakes that I was not there to the intent you may believe. Nevertheless, let us go unto him. Now, they was just trying to put hands on Mashiach. He had to escape out of their hands. Here he is talking about going right back where they was trying to kill him. And I could see Kepha and Matthew and, John and them be like, man, I don't know, Mashiach, that's a good thing. They was trying to kill you over there because you had said, you was the son of Elohim. But, you sure you won't go back? I know Lazarus, your cousin, but, you won't go back over there? Verse 16, then said Thomas, the one everybody put down for being a doubter. Then said Thomas, which is called Didymus, which means twin, unto his fellow disciples, because they was all probably talking that talk, be like, Mashiach, man, I don't know about that. You sure you won't go back? But Thomas said to his fellow disciples, let us go that we may die with him. I'm telling you, Thomas loved Mashiach so much, he was willing to go back to Jerusalem and face death with Mashiach. Thomas was committed to ride or die with Mashiach. Put a Y in the chat if you know what ride or die mean. He was like, I'm going with you and I'm not going to separate, even if it means death. Thomas was about that life. Think twice when you start talking about how he doubted, because Thomas said, man, let's go with him and we're going to die with him. And he was trying to convince Kepha and everybody, like, man, come on, man. Come on. We got to go back with him. He ain't going back by himself. I'm going. If y'all don't go, I'm going. I'm ride or die. But that just show you how much Thomas loved Mashiach. He was like Matthew, who heard 2 words, follow me. And he's like, man, you can take this job. I'm out of here. And Thomas, he was like, we got to go back. I ain't letting Mashiach go back there by himself. I'm going to get me a few licks in before they get me, but he ain't going by himself. And he was trying to talk everybody into going back with Mashiach. He chose the right people. In John chapter 14, that was this fella by the name of Philip, one of the first few people he met. Mashiach was telling him, I think in verse 7, if you had known me, you should have known the Father also. Henceforth, you know him and have seen him. And Philip said unto him, Master, show us the Father, and it suffices. Just show us who the Father is, and it's going to be enough. He wasn't asking, look, give me a Cadillac. He wasn't asking, hey, look, show us the money. I mean, show us some more miracles. And he said, I want to just see the Father. It's going to be enough, is what Philip was saying. Just show me the Father. Anybody out there got a desire in your heart to just know the Father, to just know who he is? It don't matter what's going on in this world. If you could just see the Father, if you could just have this revelation of who the Father is, it's going to be enough. John 17, verse 3 tells us this is life eternal, that they may know thee, the only true Elohim, the Father, and Yahushua HaMashiach, whom you sent. Eternal life, life eternal is knowing the Father. And Philip had this thing in his heart in John 14:8, where he says, just show us the Father. I just want to see him. And if I could just see the Father, it's going to be enough, because I know if I see the Father, then I'm going to have life eternal. Philip had a heart and a desire, not for just worldly possessions and stuff like that, but Philip had a heart and a desire for a relationship with our Heavenly Father. I mean, he picked the right people. I remember that time in Matthew 20, verse 20, James and John, the sons of thunder, Boragenes, brought their mama. in Matthew 20, then came to him, to Mashiach, the mother of Zebedee's children, James and John, with her sons, worshiping him, and desired a certain thing of Mashiach. And he said unto her, what will you? What will you? What do you want? And she said unto him, grant that these my two sons may sit, one on your right hand, the other on the left, in your kingdom. But Yahushua answered and said, you know not what you ask. Are you able to drink of the cup that I shall drink of, and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? They said unto him, we are able. And Mashiach said unto them, you shall drink indeed of my cup, and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with. But to sit on my right hand and on my left is not mine to give, but it shall be given to them for whom it is prepared of my Father. And I know the rest of the disciples, they got mad with him, with James and John and their mama too. But James and John had this longing and desire in their hearts. They knew Mashiach had a kingdom coming. They was like, we just don't want to be in the kingdom. We want to be so close to you, where I want to be on the right and my brother on the left. That's how they wanted to be so near to our Mashiach, that they just didn't want to be in the kingdom. They wanted to be in the kingdom, but so close to him where they could touch him, so close to him that every time he looked over to see somebody else, he would see me. he would have to see me and know that I have love for him in my heart. Or if he gonna look this way, he gonna see me or my brother, because they had this desire and this longing in their heart to be near him. They didn't say like them folks used to say back in the day, I just want to be a doorkeeper in the house of the Most High. You know, they used to say Lord. I just want to be a doorkeeper in the house of the Lord. I just want a little shack on the backside of heaven. They wasn't them kind of folks. I don't want to just have a little shack on the backside of heaven. I don't want to just be the doorkeeper. I want to be right there next to you, Mashiach. I want to be right there where you are. And that's what James and John wanted. He picked the right people as his apostles. Matthew 16, begin with verse 13. That fella Kepha, I remember that time he was asking, who do men say that the Son of Man am? Who did it say I am? They said, some say you are John the Baptist, some say Elias, some say Jeremiah, some say one of the prophets. And then he asked the question, he wind up and he threw that fastball at him. And he, who do you say that I am? Because you've been rolling with me all this time. I pick you. I want to see who you say I am. And if you don't know me, I don't know what to say. But if you know who I am, then the Father certainly have given me the right ones. While they were scratching their head, while they was thinking, well, we said Isaiah, we said John the Baptist, we said a prophet, we said Jeremiah. And all of a sudden, in Simon Peter's, Kepha answered and said, you are Mashiach, the son of the living Elohim. Not them wood and statue deities, but the living Elohim. You are Mashiach, the son of the living Elohim. Yahusha looked at Kepha like, and answered and said to him, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood had not revealed this unto you, but my Father which is in heaven. He forgot a revelation from the Father because he wasn't just going to church every time the doors open. He just wasn't coming to Shabbat lesson every time the doors open or the Zoom call started, but he was actually spending time in the word, in prayer. He was actually spending time with Mashiach, and he got the revelation, you are Mashiach, the son of the living Elohim. And Mashiach told him, you're blessed, not because you know who I am, but because you can hear from heaven, and therefore you know who I am. Kepha got a revelation from Almighty Yah. I mean, he got something that most people can't get a revelation of. Even today, they talking about Trinity and modalism and Mashiach is God and all kind of stuff. They still trying to figure out who's who. But Kepha got the inside tip from heaven. He got something from above because he was hanging with Mashiach. John 1:45, when they found Mashiach, they found this fellow, Nathaniel, or Nathaniel, and said unto him, we have found him of whom Moshe in the Torah and the prophets did write, Yahusha of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Nathanael said unto him, can there any good thing come out of Nazareth? Philip said unto him, come and see, man, you got to come. Nathanael, you've been searching, you've been studying, but I found the one who you and we always talking about. The one according to Malachi chapter 3, verse 16. Somebody throw that in the chat. Malachi 3:16 said they spoke often of him. They spoke often of him. And a book was written about it. Every time they spoke often of him. Nathanael, by the way, Nathanael is that fella Bartholomew. When it mentions the apostles, he's Bartholomew, otherwise known as Nathaniel or Nathanael. Bartholomew or Nathanael said, can any good thing come out of Nazareth? Because I've been studying the book. And Philip had to urge him, man, you just got to come see, man. I'm telling you, we talk all the time about this fella right here, and he's here. At verse 47, Yahusha saw Nathanael or Bartholomew coming to him and said of him, while he was walking up, Nathanael was walking up, he said, behold, an Israelite indeed. Now, he didn't say, behold, a Christian indeed, but he said, behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no guile or no deceitfulness. And Nathaniel said unto him, whence knowest thou me? Or how you know me? Yahusha answered and said unto him, before that Philip called you, when you was under the fig tree, I saw you. When Nathanael heard that in verse 49, he answered and said unto him, Rabbi, or master, or teacher, you are the son of Elohim. You are the king of Israel. Now, we give credit to Kepha because Kepha said in Matthew 16:16 that who do men say you are? Who do I say you are? You the son of the living Elohim. But Nathaniel, he was the first apostle that actually says, "You are the son of Elohim." Nathaniel was the first one that got the revelation because he was reading the scriptures. He could tell right away that only the true son of the living Elohim could know his downsitting and his uprising, like Psalm 139, verse 2 says. Somebody throw that Psalm 139 2 in there. Only the true son of the living Elohim could understand his thoughts, could understand his thoughts. There was a disciple, John 13, verse 23. This disciple, he was always hanging out with Mashiach. He was the only one that is ever mentioned where it says, now there was leaning on Yahushua's bosom, one of his disciples whom Yahushua loved. Wow. To have that written about you, that you was the disciple whom Yahushua loved. That's called for a praise break, a prayer meeting. I mean, to have that said of you. And because he was the disciple whom Yahushua loved, he was allowed in his private space. He was allowed to lay on Mashiach's bosom and hear his heartbeat. And when Mashiach was about to give it up on that stake in John 19:26, he looked down at that disciple standing by. The only one of 12 apostles that showed up, the rest was hiding out. But the disciple whom Mashiach loved showed up at the stake. It says, when Yahushua therefore saw his mother and the disciple standing by, whom he loved, he said unto his mother, woman, behold your son. Then said to the disciple, behold your mother. And from that hour, that disciple took her unto his own home. Talk about someone who Mashiach really loved, that he let him, like a little brother, be there. And not only that, he's like, you know, you got to take care of mama. I'm about to go to the father, but you know, you got to take care of mama. He took her in his home. That was his mama from that day forward. He chose the right one. He chose the right disciples. He chose the right disciples. John 6, verse 70. Yahushua had just had a bunch of his disciples that left him. He said to the ones who stayed, Yahushua answered them, have I not chosen you 12, and one of you is a devil? He said, one of you is a devil. How many did Mashiach choose? According to John chapter 6, verse 70. But one of them was a devil. He didn't make no mistake, y'all. In verse 71, he spake of Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon, for he it was that should betray him, being one of the 12. He spoke of Judas Iscariot. Now, Judas means Judah. Iscariot, what does Ish mean in Hebrew? Anybody know? It can mean husband, but it also can mean. There you go. It means husband or man. Judas was a man of Cariot. Cariot was a place, it was a city that's about 12 miles from Hebron, about 30 miles south of Jerusalem. I remember Naam and I, we was driving through Israel a few years ago, and I saw the sign and it said Cariot, go this way. I'm like, Cariot? Like Judas Iscariot? It hit me. Judas, man of Cariot. Judas was from the town of Cariot in Israel, which is about 12 miles south of Hebron or about 30 miles south of Jerusalem. It says Judas Iscariot. Somebody put that in the chat. What was Judas' daddy's name? Somebody say Simple Simon. Judas' daddy's name was Simon. For it was he that should betray him, being one of the 12. How many of the 12 was Judas? He wasn't number one, but he was one of the 12. Judas Iscariot was Judas, man of Cariot, the town Cariot. He was the son of Simon, and he was one of the 12. Luke 7:36. And there was one day that came by, and one of the Pharisees desired that Mashiach would eat with him. And he went to the Pharisee's house and sat down to meat. At verse 37, and behold, a woman in the city, which was a sinner, When she knew that Yahusha sat at meat in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster box of ointment and stood at his feet behind him, weeping, and began to wash his feet with tears, and did wipe them with the hairs of her head, and kissed his feet, and anointed them with the ointment. Mashiach had all kind of folks that just loved him and knew who he was because they was studying the scriptures. But they was at that Pharisee's house one day where he was invited to eat. And verse 39, now when the Pharisee which had bitten him saw it, he spake within himself. He didn't say this loud, but he was like, man, he put that face on like, I ain't gonna say nothing. I ain't gonna say nothing, face, but inside I'm tripping. Now, when the Pharisee which had bidden him saw it, he spake within himself, saying, this man, if he were a prophet, would have known who and what manner of woman this is that touch him, for she is a sinner. That Pharisee was tripping inside. He's like, man, he ain't no prophet. Because if he was, he would know who touching him. She could come up in here crying on his feet and anointing with this alabaster box on his head and stuff like that. But she ain't fooling me. I know her. I seen her down there. And if he was a prophet, he should know better. But he didn't convince me he ain't nobody. He ain't nobody. And so that Pharisee, highlight in verse 39, the Pharisee, which had bitten him, spake that in himself. Verse 40, and Yahusha answering said unto him, Simon. Somebody put that Pharisee name in the chat. What was that Pharisee name? Somebody put that in the chat. Now, I'm going to tell you, 1 Thessalonians 5:21, prove all things, hold fast that which is good. I cannot 100% prove Simon is Judas' daddy, but I just got sneaking suspicions about stuff. Like I said in the beginning, I'm going to try and tell you some things I'm thinking. You don't have to accept it if you don't want. But Mashiach said in verse 40 unto him, Simon, I have somewhat to say unto you. And he said, say on. Mashiach said, look, I got something to tell you. I know what you're thinking. I'm going to address that. I'm not just going to let that go. And he said, oh, go ahead. Say you got something. I invited him. He obviously going to tell everybody, man, I appreciate Simon invited me to the party. And, have me as the guest of honor. He's such a great guy and everything. He's doing great work in the community. And everybody ought to think highly of Simon and stuff like that. And Simon's like, yeah, go ahead, master. Say on, man. You got the mic. Go ahead. Whatever you want to say, just say that, man. And Mashiach said in verse 41, there was a certain creditor which had two debtors. The one owed 500 pence and the other one owed 50 pence. And when they had nothing to pay, frankly, he forgave them both. Tell me, therefore, which of them will love him the most? And Simon's like, man, this is obvious. Simon said, I suppose that he to whom he forgave the most. And he said unto him, Simon, you have rightly judged. And Simon probably like, man, I'm Simon, I knew I was going to get that right. And Mashiach turned to the woman and said unto Simon, see this woman? I entered into your house, Simon. You gave me no water for my feet, but she had washed my feet with her tears. And Simon's like, taken back a little bit. And she wiped them with the hairs of her head. You gave me no kiss, Simon, but this woman, since the time I came in your house, had not ceased to kiss my feet, and you wouldn't even kiss my cheek. My head with all you did not anoint, Simon, but this woman had anointed my feet with ointment. Wherefore I say unto you, her sins, which you are thinking of in your wicked heart, and think nobody hear what your thoughts. Her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But to whom, I'm not saying whom, Simon, I'm not going to say whom, but to whom little is forgiven, the same loves little. And you was the one that didn't wash my feet, didn't dry them, didn't kiss me, and didn't anoint me. So how do you stack up to this woman? And he said unto her, your sins are forgiven. And they that sat at meat with him began to say within themselves, who is this that forgiveth sins also? And he said unto the woman, your faith hath saved or delivered you. Go in peace. Question, how do y'all think Simon felt after Mashiach threw that on him? Did he feel honored, dishonored, disrespected? I mean, there you go, humiliated very little, because this was Simon's house now. He felt a little terrible. I'm telling you, in the man's own house, he invited Mashiach to come eat, and Mashiach threw this at him. He was greatly insulted. And Mashiach was saying that this woman, who Simon considered a sinner, was better than Simon himself. Simon had to have felt greatly insulted. This story is found in Matthew 26, Mark 14, Luke 7, and John 12. And it's parts and pieces all over. Just trying to study it out. In John 12:4, then said one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, highlight Simon's son, which should betray him. Because Simon, he'd been insulted. You know, when you love somebody, you got to kind of like break that up a little bit and, oh man, it's all good. But he said, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, which should betray him. Why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence and given to the poor? This he said not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had the bag. Highlight, had the bag. The title of today's message, Ms. Picard, is Judas Had the Bag. He didn't care about the poor. He's like, we could have sold this 300 pence, whatever that is, $3,000, $300, I don't know. 300 pence, somebody could look that up and put that in the chat for us. We could have took that money and gave it to, but this he said, not that he cared for the poor. He didn't care that the homeless was starving. He didn't care that they needed a coat or shelter, but because he was a thief and had the bag and bear what was put there. Judas had the bag. Now, if I was in church, I'd be telling everybody, look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, Judas had the bag. Then said Yahusha, let her alone, Judas. Against the day of my burying had she kept this. For the poor always you have with you, but me you have not always. Mashiach told Judas, leave her alone, man. She did what she wanted with her property, and you always gonna have the poor with you. But she did this for my burying. Matthew 26:13. Mashiach is talking, is written in red. It says, verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel, this news shall be preached in the whole world, there shall also that this woman had done be told for a memorial of her. Whenever you tell this Passover story and you say that part, Mashiach said, do this in remembrance of me, or do this in memorial of me, I want you to mention this woman right here. Because what she did, she went over and beyond what anyone else in this whole room had done. She cried on my feet and wiped her tears with her hair and anointed me with something that was truly valuable. And I want her to be remembered too. Then one of the 12, highlight one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot went unto the chief priests and said unto them, what will you give me? And I will deliver him unto you. And they covenanted with him for 30 pieces of silver. And from that time, he sought opportunity to betray. Let's go on back to verse 14. It says, one of the 12, Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priest. After that scene over there at Simon's house, Simon got put down, and then Judas got put down and said, look, leave her alone. Don't make me bust you out over here, because I know you got the bag. I know you a thief. That's right. He getting up in his feelings because he wanted the money from that ointment. He cared less about the poor. But it says then it's a time marker. This is what set Judas over the edge. Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priest. Judas initiated the conversation. He said, I could be your co-intel-pro. He said, I could be, what was that guy named? William O'Neill, the guy who did Fred Hampton in, got Fred Hampton killed, then he went and committed suicide himself. He said, I'm gonna be that dude. He went searching the chief priest out in verse 15. And guess what he told them? And said unto them, what will you give me? Because Judas had the bag. Judas had the bag. It's like, what you gonna give me? Because it's all about what I get to gain from all of this. It's not about what I can give or how I can help spread this gospel, this good news, this word, but it's about me. What will you give me? Because I gotta be on the take. I'm a thief, and that's what thieves do. They here to get and not to give. And he said, I'm gonna deliver him to you. I'm gonna turn him in. If you give me something, if you give me something to put in my bag getting pretty full, because all this time Mashiach been doing these miracles and preaching these messages, I was over there with my bag. Hey, look, this Mashiach preaching fund. Why don't y'all put a little something in here? Put a little something in this preaching fund bag, everybody drop a little change. Because Judas had the bag. What will you give me? And it said they covenanted it. They covenanted. Oh, a covenant for 30 pieces of silver. Years ago, I didn't know nothing. I bought this Bible. I still got it. It's on the shelf. I'm gonna move on to bigger and better scriptures, but it had a footnote, and it said 30 pieces of silver was equivalent in today's money of $52.80. I wonder what inflation we got now. What is 30 pieces of silver today? It can't be that much more. Is that worth somebody's life? And from that time on, Judas sought opportunity to betray him, according to verse 16. Judas had the bag. And so it came down to the dinner in John 13, verse 26. And Yahusha answered, and he said to Yehochanan, the disciple whom he loved, because he asked the question, you talking about who's going to betray you? Who is it? And Yahusha answered, he it is to whom I shall give the sop. When I have dipped it, and when he had dipped the sop, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, highlight son of Simon. The one with the bag, because Judas had the bag. And after the sop, something strange happened. Satan entered into him. Highlight Satan entered into him. And Yahusha looked at him and noticing the change. He said, that you do quickly. And that's why I say, look, if you're not going to live this, If you're always looking for the loophole and to get around, man, just go do what you gotta do quickly. Don't do that to yourself. At least enjoy this life if you're not gonna make it in the next. But Hasatan entered into Judas, and Mashiach looked at him, that you do quickly. Get on out of here. Now, no man at the table knew for what intent he spake unto him. For some thought, because Judas, highlight, had the bag, Judas had the bag, that Yahusha said unto him, buy those things that we have need of against the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. Wink, wink. But we know Judas didn't care about the poor. He only cared about the bag. He only cared about prosperity. That's why he was hanging with Mashiach. That's why he learned scripture. That's why he preached that message. So he could get something in the bag, worldly gain. He didn't want that relationship with Mashiach. He just wanted to fill that bag. Everybody got something out of it. Philip was begging, Mashiach, just please show us the Father, and it suffice. Kepha was getting revelation. You are Mashiach, the son of the living Elohim. John was laying on his bosom and establishing himself as the replacement son. Nathaniel knew immediately, you are the son of Elohim when I first met you. But Judas, all he wanted was the bag. In verse 30, he then receiving the sop went immediately out, and it was night. Judas probably heard all those prophecies growing up about Mashiach coming. We went over a few of them, the proto-evangelium, and we went over how, where the lamb at, Isaac said, and Abraham said, the Most High, he's going to provide himself a lamb. Judas probably heard all of those things, and he was probably obedient to his daddy's religion, even though he didn't understand why, and he never really cared to pick up the book and research further. He didn't care about it. He didn't pray 3 times a day. He didn't study. He didn't fast. He could have grown up Buddhist or Muslim or Hindu or even a Christian and been perfectly content with that set of beliefs that he was born into. He never looked into the scripture for himself to see if anything in those religions could be verified as true. Judas just walked around parroting everything that he heard, all those little cliches and those buzzwords that he heard used in his religious circles, and couldn't tell you one verse where it came from. No effort into finding context. Oh, he may not come when you want him. He'll be right on time. We saved by grace through faith. We don't have to do none of this. The law is done away with. He just parroting everything he heard. But there's one thing about this thing. In life, there's always a test to determine who's light and who is darkness. Now it was Judas' turn to take this test. In John chapter 18, it says that Yahushua always took his disciples over the brook Kidron to a place where there was a garden. Verse 2, it said, Judas also, which betrayed Mashiach, knew the place. For Yahushua oftentimes resorted thither with his disciples. Judas had the COINTELPRO. He knew, okay, Mashiach, he usually come here, he usually go there, and he gonna be at that garden. And Judas knew the place. Verse 3, Judas then, having received a band of men and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, come thither with lanterns and torches and weapons. Judas got the soldiers together from the chief priests and the Pharisees. Judas was the one. Judas was the one. They came with a false light, with lanterns and torches, when they had the light of the world right there with them. And it says they also came with weapons. They didn't know the one who possessed the sword of the Spirit. They had to bring their carnal weapons against him. And Yahushua, knowing all things that should come upon him, went forth and said, who you seek? Who you looking for? And they answered him, Yahushua of Nazareth. And Yahushua said, unto them, I am he. And Judas also, which betrayed him, stood with him. He didn't come on Mashiach's side. He stood with them guys with them weapons and them torches and stuff. I like to think that maybe Judas started to put things together as they took Mashiach. They brought him to the chief priest and they accused him of everything. They started beating him and mocking him. And he started looking at that and he's like, man, I didn't realize it was going to go down like this. And he started thinking about the prophecies that he heard all his life in Scripture. Isaiah 53, all his life, he heard them reading from the book, but he never put it together. And when it was beating Mashiach, Judas got to looking at that in Isaiah 53, and he started thinking to himself, Isaiah said, but he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. And Judas is watching him just doing dirty to Mashiach. And he's thinking to himself, he was oppressed and afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. It's like, why he not saying nothing? He is brought as a lamb to slaughter, as a sheep before her shearer is dumb. So he opened not his mouth. It's like the prophecies fit this guy. The wheels are turning in Judas's head at this point. And it said, he was taken from prison in judgment. I watched that, Judas said. And who shall declare his generation? For he was cut off out of the land of the living. For the transgression of my people, he was stricken. And Judas got to thinking of that, Psalm 41. He was wounded for our transgression, bruised for our iniquities. He was oppressed and afflicted. Could this really be the one? And he's got to thinking of the other prophecies, Psalm 41, verse 9. Daniel said, it was this generation. And that prophecy said, yeah, my own familiar friend in whom I trusted, which did eat of the sop, my bread, had lifted up his heel against me. And Judas is thinking, it's going through his mind now, am I the one who is this familiar friend that lifts up the heel against the true son of Elohim? And Judas realizes that it's his generation and it's in his lifetime. See, we don't have time to play like that. It's in our lifetime that we got to make this count. After seeing all of this, then Judas, which had betrayed him, it was done. When he saw that he was condemned, he saw Mashiach was condemned, Judas repented himself and brought again the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders. Judas knew that Mashiach was doomed and destined to be hung on a tree, not a cross. He was hung on a tree. And Judas knew what was coming. And Judas brought that money back, 30 pieces of silver, to the chief priests and the elders. He was trying to fix this situation. He did not want to be this familiar friend who lifts up the heel against the one, the true, the only Mashiach of the living Elohim. He's like, I can't let this go down. Like, we've been waiting for him, and I can't be the betrayer. I can't be the one. And in verse 4, he brought that money back to the chief priest, the 30 piece of silver, and saying, I have sinned. In that I have betrayed the innocent blood. And they looked at Judas and they said, what is that to us? See you to that. That's your problem, Judas. Psalm 41:9 says, you was the familiar friend. You the one, not us. What is that to us? Judas runs to the chief priest with the bag, and he thought he could simply return the bag and that everything would be undone. I'm telling you, regrets is something else. I hear people now, I wish I wouldn't have done that. Man, my life would be so much different. Judas had that moment in a big way. He tries to return the bag. if life was that simple? And he realizes I'm that guy. Mashiach said you can gain the whole world and lose your soul. And I was right there. I was one of the 12. Verse 5. And he cast down the pieces of silver in the temple and departed and went and hanged himself. Judas decided, I can't turn this around. He went and he hung himself. The chief priests and them finally did something good with their money. In verse 6, they took the 30 pieces of silver. They bought with the 30 pieces of silver the potter's field to bury strangers in. Now, that shows you their heart that they didn't want that blood money, but they could have been spent that money, which came from them, on a field to bury strangers in if they really cared for the poor. But like Judas, they were all about the bag. The prosperity pulpit pimps, all about the bag. I remember seeing this preacher bragging about he had 3 personal jets, private jets, so far in his lifetime. I'm like, man, you ought to be ashamed of yourself getting up there talking that. I remember this fella running on top of all people money, talking about money coming to me now. So they finally took the money and did something good with it because it was blood money. At least they had a conscience, I guess. In Zechariah chapter 11, verse 12 and 13, we're not going to go there, but somebody could post it in the chat. It prophesied that they was going to get that money and turn it in. So Judas hangs himself. But guess what? In Acts chapter 1, it tells us exactly what happened. It says that David prophesied, men and brethren, this scripture must needs have been fulfilled, which Ruach HaKodesh by the mouth of the prophet David spake before concerning Judas. Judas had been prophesied about since David, which was God to them that took Yahusha. For he was numbered with us and had obtained part of the ministry. He was one of us. Now this man purchased a field with the reward of iniquity, of sin. And falling headlong, he burst asunder in the midst, and all his bowels gushed out. Judas hung himself. Perhaps the branch or the rope broke, something broke, and Judas fell headlong and burst asunder in the midst. And when he hit bottom, his bowels come out. He failed to properly hang himself too, because somebody was supposed to get him off of that before nightfall. But that never happened because either branch broke or the rope broke. He fell to his death if he wasn't already dead. Verse 19 said they purchased the field El Sadama, which is called the field of blood. The end result in verse 20, they picked somebody else. It said, let his habitation be desolate, and let no man dwell therein, and his bishopric let another take. Judas got replaced because he cared more about the bag than about the ministry. And they picked Matthias according to verse 26. But what did Judas miss? In Matthew chapter 19, verse 27, Kepha asked this question to Mashiach. Behold, we have forsaken all. See, we gave it all up. Judas was still holding the bag. I don't know why. Matthew, he was tax collector. He knew about money. He was the accountant, but Judas loved the bag, so Mashiach gave it to him. But we have forsaken all and followed you. What shall we have therefore? And Mashiach said unto them, verily I say unto you, that you which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory or esteem, you also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Guess what Judas missed out on? Judas was one of the what? That's right. He was one of the 12. He would have had a place in Mashiach's kingdom, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Now he's going to be getting judged on the last day. Mashiach said this further, not just for Kepha and them, but he said in verse 29, and everyone, that means you and me, that forsake houses, or brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands, for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold and inherit everlasting life. You got to love everything less than you love Mashiach. You got to love Mashiach more. The question is, what is the bag? Anybody know what the bag is? Anybody have an idea of what the bag? Because Judas had the bag. The bag prevented him from truly being one of the 12. He got replaced. Luke 14:26. Mashiach said, if any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yea, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. The bag is whatever you love more than you love Mashiach. The bag for Judas was 1 Timothy 6:10. Somebody could throw that in there. The bag was the love of money, which is the root of all evil. The bag for some of us is we just love Christmas. The bag for some of us is I ain't giving up no pork. The bag for some of us is I ain't keeping no feast days. I don't have to do all that. I know JC loved me. Judas had the bag. You gotta let that bag go. You gotta let that bag go. You gotta let it go if you want Mashiach, whatever that bag is. That bag could be somebody you love more than him. But I tell you what, in the morning and at night, we separate and she come to her prayer room and I go to my prayer closet to make sure that we keeping it in perspective that we putting him first. Naama is not my bag and I'm not her bag, according to Luke 14:26. My child is not my bag. I'm gonna make sure, okay, I gotta take care of this child. Well, look, come on, baby, you come and pray with me. And look, we're gonna read some script together. Come on, let me show you. I'm gonna teach you how to read. You're gonna know some things. So the bag is whatever is preventing you from loving Mashiach with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. While there's still time, we need to ask him, show us the Father, because that's our desire. We need to ask him, can I lay my head on your bosom and hear your heartbeat and know what your passion is? Yahushua Hamashiach, can I anoint your head with the best prayer oil I could squeeze out from my supplications? Can I go into prayer and wash your feet with my tears? And can my hair be your drying cloth? Can I give him what's due him in this season while I still have breath in life in this body? If I can do that, if I have that desire for him, I know that we will be accepted in the beloved. So, Mishpachah, don't be like Judas. Take this seriously. This is not play. I mean, if we're not going to do this, man, just go enjoy life. At least enjoy this. Don't torment yourself being half-hearted and then get tormented later. Be 100 with whatever you're going to do. Either way, don't be like Judas, because Judas had the bag. I hope this word help you in some way to make the right decisions in your life, to give up those foolish thoughts that we can do whatever in the world we want to do. I'm telling you, Christianity done some heavy damage to some of us. We think we can do anything and just say that, lay me down to sleep prayer, and God gonna forgive me. I'm gonna just roll on. I'm not taking no chances. I'm trying to give up my bag. I'm trying to give it up, and I'm trying to just lay my head on his book. I'm just trying to let him know that I want to know the Father. Please show me the Father, and I'll be satisfied. I just gotta know who the Father is, and hopefully he'll give us the revelation. Don't be like Judas, because Judas had the bag. Hope you enjoyed this message today, and I hope that you learned something valuable that you can use in your life. All praise to the Most High. Yeah, let's pray.